All right, I want to say ETM Hotep. Welcome in peace to our to the Sesh mdw-ntr YouTube channel. Reni Wujao, my name is Wujao, and I'll be running point. For our brief video, we're going to revisit. This is part 2 of a video we did Friday, where we addressed some of the claims that Brother Zion Lex made in a previous video that he did with Brother Solomon on their YouTube channel. And so it's just a couple of things that we were asked to take a look at, and analyze and address and ask questions about it. So we decided to kind of go live and address it to where everyone could benefit, instead of just giving an answer to the particular person that asked us about some comments and some claims that were made in the video. So hopefully our previous video have benefited people, and that you've learned from it. And so this one probably be shorter. We're just going to address a couple of things that was said in the video. And before I continue, I do have another panel member. Maybe you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hotep. My name is Imiket, and yeah, just looking forward to the whole show. There's a lot to learn.
All right. So, but before I move forward, I just want to make sure that technically everything is okay with the video itself. So is there a way that you can just check on the YouTube side to see if it's streaming properly?
Yeah, it seems to be playing well. It's clear, but I think there's just a small delay.
Okay, yeah, delay is normal. All right, yeah. So if anyone is in the chat, and mind you, we've gone live pretty much out the blue. This is, unannounced. So if I appreciate anyone who's tuned in. Obviously, you're tuned in. You got the notification and the alert. That means you subscribed to our channel, and you've clicked on the notification button, which is good. But share the link. Maybe other people you feel that will benefit from the information that we have for our discussion tonight. All right. So before moving forward, we always like to set the tone by reciting an offering formula. All right, so let me pull up on the screen. And Sonnet Emiket, if you don't mind, if you can recite the offering formula and set our tone and mood for tonight's discussion.
All right, my pleasure. So yeah, what we have on the screen is the offering formula, and to quickly go over it, the top part, that is the glyphs, the Sesh Netcher, and the middle part, that is the transliteration, and then the bottom part, that is the translation. So I'm just going to go ahead and recite it. Hotep Tinesu, Wasir Neb Jadu, Netcher Neb Abju, DF Beret Cheru, T Henket, Ka Abed Ches Menchet, Ket Nebet Neferet, Webet Anket Netchaim, In Kani Imaku, Aku Mahiru. What this is saying is an offering the king gives Osiris, Lord of Jadu, great God, Lord of Abydos, so that he may give verbal offerings in beer, bread, ox, fowl, alabaster, and linen, everything good and pure on which a god lives, for the car of the revered ones, the ancestors, justified. Yeah, and this offering formula is done on behalf of the ancestors, which is the Aku. But if you would like to recite it at any other given time, you can also insert a name of any ancestor that you'd like to include in the offering formula. So you could replace that with the name Aku.
Okay. Iker and dua for that. All right. So again, last Friday, we normally have Freestyle Fridays, where we were doing that for quite a while. We took a break from it, and we just recently started back up on Fridays, Freestyle Friday. But this past Friday, instead of Freestyle Friday, we incorporated another series of videos that we do quite often, which is Welcome to the Sebaytdome. And so Friday was one of those videos. And what we do during those series of videos is that we'll take different questions and claims and statements made by people in the community, and we will address it, things that are brought to our attention in our Facebook group or in our messages on Facebook. People will see things, read things in books or see videos either on Facebook or on YouTube, other platforms, and then may have a question about it, and they come to us to ask questions because, we've been doing this for quite a while, and people have known us to be, quite diligent and studious of the language and culture of Kemet. So they will come and run things past us and either get our views, takes, opinions, or looking for more information, etc. about it. So from time to time, people will give us links and timestamps to things that were said or whatever the case is, and we will look at it and then address it with the person. But we started the series of Welcome to the Sebaytdome so that we can publicly answer these questions and address things so that more people can benefit from it and not just, coming from our answers to the individual. All right. Because, it's all about everyone being able to benefit and learn and expand the body of knowledge. All right. So this particular instance, someone had given a link to a video that was done on the brother Solomon's YouTube channel. I believe it's In the Black Radio, and the brother Zion Lex was a guest on that particular platform, giving information about Medew Netcher. And so there's a couple of things that were pointed out in the video for us to look at. And so Friday we addressed a couple of those things, and then so tonight is no different. We're just going to address a couple more. And, any other videos that come up, we'll just continue to do this series of videos. And sometimes we may revisit older videos to address certain claims and statements. All right. Because our goal is just to make sure that the information is accurate as possible and that the quality is there. And that if any misinformation, whether intentional or unintentional, because a lot of people that are sincerely trying to learn themselves and to share information. So we definitely consider that. And we don't, we're not conspiracy theorists where everyone is out to get everyone else and so on and so forth. But, overall, we want the quality and the accuracy to be there. So we will address things that we find to be inaccurate, wrong, false, etc., etc. Okay, so Friday we went over a couple of claims that was made by the brother Zion Lex to correct him in his knowledge of learning the language. He said that he's been studying the language for 2.5 years, but I'm assuming that he's been studying on his own as an autodidact, and I'm all for autodidact methods of learning. Learning on your own, but there are consequences to that. There are risks that you take when doing that. And as long as people are aware of it, you're open to make mistakes and stay on a path of making mistakes if you don't have someone who is more competent or proficient in that particular study to kind of help you out and guide you and so on and so forth. So, it's a better environment to learn with a group of people or with someone who can train and teach you. And then obviously a proper teacher or an instructor will also not cause you to depend on them solely for information. They should push you. That's what an educator does. An educator and a teacher are two different roles that can be performed by the same person. A teacher is one who points out things. If you look at the word teacher and look up the historical meaning of that word and how it changed over history, which is its etymology, you'll find that the word teacher means to point out things. And an educator is a person who has the ability to draw out that which is already in you. So the combination of pointing out things and the combination of enhancing and cultivating your natural talents within you is what makes a very good overall teacher. We simply call those people teachers or instructors. All right. So a good teacher will never cause you to depend on them for information in the first place. So the idea of autodidact, studying on your own, should be a secondary or a necessary, just in case type of situation. And we don't have to be in that situation. Okay, so we just want to let people know that information is out there. We as a group, Sesh, mdw-ntr, we welcome any and everybody to come and study, take the course, which is let me actually show the website. We have a website. Our home website is seshmedunetcher.com. And on this particular website, we have various different information. We are growing it to be a one-stop shop for resources and information about Kemet, and with a main focus on the languages and the writing system. Okay, so that's our home as a group, Sesh mdw-ntr, and you'll find transliterations, translations of things, articles, some of the things that we've already corrected, some of the myths and pseudo scientific information that's floating around out there. We've addressed quite a bit already. All right. Now, in terms of the actual study course, we have a beginner study course on a website called Sebaytdome.com. All right. So there's the beginner's study course, and on average, it takes 12 weeks to complete the course. And by the end of the course, you will be able to transliterate and translate basic inscriptions. So you're given all the tools necessary to accomplish that. And it's a step-by-step course, and there's a textbook that is required that you need to have to actually follow through with that. But if you go to the website, all the information is there. You can sign up at any time. And what's good about the study course is that you can go at your own pace. And every week, twice a week, a teacher, it's been myself, but in the future, we're going to have other teachers. But every week, twice a week, we have live interactive sessions where you can ask questions. We can go over different chapters in the book and make sure everything is understood and clear to you. And you can take quizzes. The quizzes are available online, the final exam, and the whole nine. All right. This is a certified course where you get a certificate of proficiency upon completion. All right. So I want to get all of that understood and out of the way before we go into our topic for tonight. Okay. So, and that leads us into our topic for tonight. So again, we're spending a little bit more time on the video, the presentation that was done by Brother Zion Lex. And I want to make this disclaimer very clear, because I know how sensitive different people are in the social community, where, people instigate people, it's become a very oppositional environment where people fuss and get dramatic and argue and fight unnecessarily. And that's not real debating. Debating, scholastic debating, is a little different than that. And so I want to make it clear that we're not attacking the brother Zion Lex. I personally don't know the brother. He doesn't know me, or anything like that. So it's nothing personal whatsoever. And we're not out to attack the brother, period, or his beliefs. We have these discussions, or we address things based on things being brought to our attention. And hopefully the brother has the same goal that we have, which is quality and accuracy of whatever information that we, impart on to the public. Okay, especially if you're in a position of influence on different platforms. Some people are more known than others, and they can have a power of influence over other people and what they think. So I would like to think that everyone would want their information to be accurate as possible. All right. So, and that's the spirit in which we address these different statements and claims. All right. So this is part 2. We labeled it part 2 because Friday we went over a couple of claims. So tonight I'm going to run point, but I'm going to pass the mic on over to Sonnet Emiket, who wants to address one of the claims that was made. And what I will do is play a portion of the clip of the video where the brother's making the claim so that it's clear on what's being addressed. So Emiket, I will pass this over to you. And if you can give me that timestamp again, and I will play the video first so that we can have something to as a basis for our conversation.
All right, Dua. So I'll go ahead and do that. Let me just share my screen first so I could get the timestamps as well, and hopefully so the timestamps will be on 29:30
Okay, so
on the first one. Yeah.
all right, so let me play that clip first, and then we'll get into what you are gonna address with that.
All right.
So let me get my cursor up first here. All right, and could you please just double check the public video just to make sure everything is okay? Because you know, last thing I would want to do is go through this and something technically is wrong with the video. Because as I share my screen, you know, I'm unable to see what everything is going on around me.
Everything looks good from that end.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're gonna play it, and you said we're gonna play it from this point. Okay, so you let me know when to stop. So I'm gonna play it, and then you let me know when to stop, and then we can go into it.
All right.
So the word Medew literally means words of God. Medew is plural. We have the word, and I'm gonna go through it glyph by glyph. The first glyph is Netcher, and the second glyph is Med or MD. Now, the first thing I want to point out is this. Although the word Netcher is written first, when you speak it, Medew Netcher, you always say Med first. This is called honorific transposition.
I just want to pause it right there just to make sure everyone understands that I'm actually playing the video. So what you're seeing on the screen is their actual video that they did. So the cursor that's moving, it's all them. I just want to point that out because you may also see my cursor as well when we explain things, just for clarification. But so let's continue.
Where, although the word is Medew Netcher, when it's written, preference is given to the deity or the Netcher. Hence why they write Netcher first. In writing, this is known as in Kemetic writing, or in the writing of the Kemetiu, the people of Kemet, this is known as honorific transposition, where we take the divinity and we place it first in writing. Now, the second glyph is a staff, and it has the phonetics of MD. Now, MD or Medew literally means words or to speak. Now, the first thing that I had to ask myself as a person who tries to delve deep into language was this. Why is it that the staff is used for speech or to speak words? It took me back to something that I took during college when I was doing an EMT course at John Jay College. A lot of people may or may not know this, who may or may not have children, but anyone who has children know that there's a synchronicity in childhood development when it comes to talking and walking. You know that in the early stages of infant development, two things usually occur at the same time. At the same time that a child begins to walk, that child also begins to talk. Now, in looking at diseases that affect humans, no matter what age you are, a lot of diseases related to walking, people who may have a disease that may stop them from walking, you'll soon notice problems in their speech pattern. This is something that I learned as I began to take patients from point A to point B, and they would give us their chart, and we'd look at the chart, and we'll see somebody that obviously has speech problems or issues with them speaking, and they also have problems walking. So, from an early age of me looking at the medical world or the medical profession, I understood from that perspective that there was a connection between walking and speaking. And this is the connection here. And this is why I believe MeduNet is a powerful language because it shows the science that the people understood. Because remember, we're talking about some of the first instances that we see the MeduNet is 3100 BC. And they're using the walking stick, the staff, and giving it the phonetics MD, and they're defining it as speech. They're relating speech and walking in 3100 BC. Europeans didn't figure this out to the 1800s. This is why I believe that the MetaNet is a powerful language. And the fact that most people have never heard this, and this is your first time hearing it, and it's coming from a Hebrew, should possibly cause you to put a little bit more respect on people who actually approach scholarship in a very serious way. I've listened to literally hundreds of hours of videos of MetaNet teachers speaking of MetaNet, and I have not heard a single one of them break that down. So I want to make that clear, that if we're going to speak on...
Okay, so that's the brother's words. And so let me switch over to what you're sharing, and then we can address it. And let me know if you need me to replay anything, because there was a couple of things that I want to address as well. So that I'm not sure if you don't address, I'll go back to it. So give me a second. Let me pull up what you have shared right now. Let's make sure that we can see it on the screen. So hopefully everyone can see it on the screen. And the mic is all yours.
All right, Dua, and yes, do feel free to address anything that I might go, not really touch on, because I know he said a mouthful. And first and foremost, I mean, the reason why you haven't had a lot or any Medew scholar make that kind of claim is because that claim is false. And I'm just going to go ahead and read from the screen. What you see is just a basic, it's a summarization of what the brother is saying. So what he's saying is that the Remech, or the ancient Egyptians, used the walking staff, which is, you can find it under the Gardner code S43. They used that glyph to denote speech in Medew Netcher because they were relating speech to walking. And he kind of went over an explanation of, his early days or his expertise when working with people and all of that, and figured out, and find out why that was his claim, holds water. But there's a few things that I can quickly go over that's just that logically that does not make sense. And his first thing, when he's talking about babies, we know that nobody has ever seen a baby using a walking stick. Babies, they're not walking at that point, and even if they're walking, then we see older people using walking sticks. So that association is just incorrect. And even if we're going to use the walking stick to build an association between walking and talking or speech, why not just use the legs? That's what we're using, right? So those are the first and foremost, those are the two things that we can kind of just set aside and to kind of see why that logic would not work, and why no scholar would even try to make that kind of claim. But I think what he's trying to do is which is a good thing, especially when you're learning language or any languages in general. It's really difficult, and Sesh Medew Netcher, the script is hard to learn because you're learning a language and you're learning a script at the same time. So most of the time, to help us along, we kind of we do use few clutches here and there, like crutches here and there, to kind of help us associate things that otherwise we might forget. And he's done a good job of doing that. So he found an experience that he had and made an association with the walking stick, and that's a good thing. It will help him remember. But we have to be very careful that when we're doing that, that's something personal. But we cannot take those kind of things, our personal association, and make them as facts. That is completely wrong. When what we're supposed to be doing is what we like to say, and you find that in the text, is what is called tep hesep, which is the correct method. When you're trying to figure out why something is what it is, there are certain procedures that we need to follow. And if, let's say, if Zanlex didn't know or was wondering, why are we using the walking stick? Why is the glyph of the walking stick being used in the word Medew Netcher? Then we kind of have to, go through certain steps. And really, when you ask that, we could also just ask a question like, why are any of the glyphs that we see, all these pictographic glyphs we see in Sesh Medew Netcher, why are they used for certain words? And that is when you go to the very, very, very basic fundamental thing that you need to learn, when you're studying Sesh Medew Netcher, and that is writing systems. Obviously, the walking stick or any other glyphs that are being used, it is used as we have signs, and we have what some people might call signs, what some other people might call characters or symbols or glyphs. We have a set of those that are used in a writing system. A writing system is graphical representation of speech or spoken words. So we have those set of glyphs or set of symbols or set of signs used to represent certain words. And that is the very, very basic. And just understanding that will actually stop us from, going to other planets, going to other solar systems, trying to find answers that don't exist there, and just actually, just finding the correct answer. So the glyph, when we're dealing with writing system, understanding writing systems, especially Sesh Medew, we're using pictographs. These are signs, these are pictures of what the Ramesh had in their natural surroundings. And they were very smart enough to use these things, these pictographs in their writing system. And if we just have pictographs alone, like Zanles is saying, like the walking stick is, they use it for walking. And so they're associating walking with speech. If we were to do that, if we were to associate every single glyph with something and something, that would not actually be a writing system. Writing systems don't work like that. We have pictographs, but pictographs on their own, they're never sufficient enough, to make up a writing system. So a writing system have to have at least these two main features. It has to have a sound value. We have pictures with sound values, and we have, whether it's pictures or symbols or glyphs, they have to have sound values, and then they have to have meaning values. So then we ask ourselves, and this is the procedure that somebody like Zanles has supposed to be using when trying to figure out why is the walking stick used in that manner. So it's like, how does the walking stick function within this writing system? Because we know we're dealing with a writing system. So within this writing system, that walking stick functions as a logogram and is known as Medew, or the stuff. And it also functions as a phonogram, which is med, and he's correct about that. It's a phonogram, and it's a biliteral because it has those two consonant sounds, med. Now, knowing that, because we're dealing with Sesh Medew, so we have these pictographs, and these pictographs, they have to function, they're working in the writing system, having sound value and having meaning value. And within Sesh Medew, those glyphs, they can function in 3 different ways. And those 3 different ways are phonograms, they're logograms, and they're determinatives. Now, as phonograms, any glyph that you find in Sesh Medew, phonograms, they represent the sounds of the language. So they're actually representing the sounds. And within Sesh Medew, we have them as monoliterals, which they represent 1 consonant. And then we have biliterals, which represent 2 consonants. And then we have triliterals that represent 3 consonants. And what we're dealing with is the biliteral, which is 2 consonantal sound. So then as logograms, they represent specific words or languages in phrases. And then the third way that they work is as determinatives. These are usually mute, and they function as classifiers. And what they do is they determine the semantic scope in which the words that they follow are. So in order to know what a word actually means, you can look at the determinative, and it will tell you what semantic scope you're actually looking at it. And that would be like, let's say in English, where we have the word book. The book, if I just wrote the word book, you will know if I'm actually talking about the literal book where you flip the pages, or maybe it's booking like book somebody into a hotel, or book somebody into a flight. So unless you're actually reading the rest of the sentences to kind of draw meaning from it, or the context, then the determinative, if we had a book and maybe if we had a book and we had to put a determinative that will let us know what we're discussing. This is what the Ramesh or the ancient Egyptians were very smart at inventing with their writing system. Now, on this section, we're going to talk about the logograms, because logograms have a specific, what they really do is logograms let us know that whatever it is that we're looking at is supposed to be read as an entire word, as a word in its entirety. So, and in Sesh Medew, when we see the logograms, they will usually have a single stroke that accompanies them. And the examples that I have here is this is the word pair. You have the glyph here, and then you have the single stroke attached to it, and this will let us know that this word is actually pair, which is the house. And then the next word also is ib, and it also has this is also logogram, and it has the single stroke, and this one will let us know that we are actually dealing with what is the heart or the mind. And when we have the walking stick and it has the single stroke attached to it, then we know that we're actually dealing with the staff itself. So now, if we were just dealing with just logograms, let's say the writing system didn't have anything to do with determinatives, or it didn't have phonograms or whatever, and we're just dealing with logograms, what will happen is for every single word we create a written symbol for it. We'd have to make sure that every word has its own, every single word item has its own word, and that will happen. That will create a whole vast of, we'll have a lot of vocabularies, and nobody will be able to remember all these words. So the smart thing that was invented is this thing that is known as a rebus principle. So what a rebus principle does is you have a pictographic sign that represent something, and then it represents this word. And then if we have another word that sounds the same, we can actually use that to represent that the other word that sounds similar to the particular word that we had in the beginning. So a rebus is a message spelled out in pictures. So it represents sounds rather than the things. So like what you're seeing on my screen right here, we see that here where my cursor is, and I hope everybody's seeing my cursor.
To you, we can see it.
Okay, yes, so this is the I. So in this case, if we're using the rebus principle, we're not going to actually look at the literal I, but the sound I. So, and then the next one is a B, and we're looking at the sound, not the insect itself. And then we have a leaf, and we're using the sound of the leaf. So and this is one of the popular rebus principle examples, and I know that you've even on the other video you kind of went over it. So but we do use this a lot, where we have the picture of the I and the B and the leaf, and then when we put it together, it forms the English rebus, which means I, B, leaf. So instead of forming a different graphic representation or a different word for I believe, we could actually borrow similar sounds from the I, from the B, and from the leaf, and use it. And this is what the Ramesh did with the writing system as well. So if you remember in this other part, we had this this is the logogram for the word sound, for the word house, and we see that it's supposed to be read as sound, because as house, because logograms they represent the entire word, the word in its entirety. So this will be the literal house. Now, so we have the word pair, and which means house. But in any language, like I did show an example, we have the word book, and book can be used in two different situations. In that sound can be used to in two different ways that have two different meanings. So, and that's with any language. So with Sesh, Medew, Netcher, you would also find other words that have the sound pair. So would the Ramesh create new glyphs for them? No, they were very smart enough to use what is called to actually use, or what he's saying, they would assign the phonetic this phonetic value P and the R. So what will happen is they have the word pair for house. They also have the word pair, which means to go forth or to emerge. So what they do is they take the word pair. So they take the phonetic values in the word pair, P and R, and then they assign it to these other words. So then they will not need to create a new word. So they will just use the glyph that we use for the house, and then they will use it to represent to represent the word, meaning to go forth. And obviously they would attach this is a phonetic complement, and you would also see the leg, which would be a determinative, and it will let you know this is not a house. We're dealing with the verb, which means to go. So now when we're dealing with the walking stuff, which is Zion Lex was naming as the word stuff. So what would happen is this word, because we have another word that is known as speech or word, what the Ramesh did was take that logogram and then assign the phonetic values M and D, and then use it in the word Medew, and add obviously the quail chick and have it as Medew, which is speech. So what we're seeing is that it is not that they were associating the walking to speech, but rather what they were doing is what is known as the Rebus principle, and that is what the procedure that somebody like Zen Lex, when studying the language, should have been aware of, why this happens within the language. So, and even just to confirm that the med is the walking stick, or you can find the word med with the determinative that shows you a stick, and that will let you know we're dealing with a stick. So yeah, and I hope that is clear. If anything is not clear on that part, you can just let me know before I move to the next slide.
No, that's clear. That's clear.
All right. Okay. So if that is clear, and I just wanted to say also, some of the if we're going to be using that kind of logic that that Zion Lex was using, that relating speech to walking. So if you have the word on the top here, what I have is the word. Let's see. What I have is the word Medew, which is verbal or oral, and these are actually from the Vegas dictionary. You can find this in any dictionary, but the Vegas dictionary is available online, and anybody can have access to it. So here we have the mouth, and you can see here we're also dealing with the logographs. It's telling us the mouth. So this is a mouth, and then you have the walking stick with with the phonetic complement, and the determinatives. But we have the word Medew. So if we're going to be saying that speech is related to walking, why would the Ramesh use the mouth as well? Why not just use the walking stick in this instance? And then if we say that okay, speech is related to walking, we have the second example here that I have. It would be what we know, this most of the people are familiar with, which is Jed Medew. So you have the cobra in repose, and then you have the walking stuff. And in this instance, the cobra in repose is actually being used for speech. So and not the walking stick. The walking stick is used for words, but this is used for spoken or speech, the cobra. So if we're going to do that, are we going to say that that they thought that the cobras were talking? Are they associating cobras with speech? Does anybody agree with that?
Oh no, I mean that's no, that's see, that doesn't follow the logic, because what we played the brother Zion Lex saying, his whole entire point was, first of all, he was saying that he's heard no one else explain it this way, and he said listen to hundreds of people talking about mdw-ntr, and that he's a Hebrew, and it takes a Hebrew to explain it, because he's never heard anybody else break it down but him, as if he's bringing new information to the table, and he's enlightening all of us about that. And so you already said that the reason why scholars don't teach about that is because it is false. And so what you're showing are clear examples of the proper way of knowing how the writing system works, and how the writing system has been mapped to the spoken language. So like, for example, your second example, the cobra, if his logic is that the walking staff is associated with speaking. And you already pointed out that the association of human beings walking and talking, that in and of itself doesn't make sense, because as babies learn to walk, they crawl first. And there is a correlation between a baby's development of crawling and walking during around the same time that a baby starts to develop speaking. And so that correlation is made in the medical and physiological aspects of medicine and so on and so forth. But as you said, no babies learn to walk with a stick or a staff. So even if you're going to make that association, that still doesn't make sense, because walking sticks are only used by elders, people who are older in age. As a matter of fact, the word med is a verb that means to support. They use sticks to hold up stuff. And so medew, the W on the end, changes the verb into a nominalize the verb, and it becomes that which supports. And so it becomes a stick, that which supports. And so, and that's what elders use to support their bodies when they walk. Okay, so even without knowing a bit about the language, just the logic alone would not make sense. And so in your second example, the cobra, if you're going to use that kind of logic, then the cobra in that second word is the word jed. And the word jed is a verb which means to say, to speak. And then you're speaking or saying what? And medew is that which comes out of the mouth, which are the words. So this is why the definition is given is words to be spoken or words spoken or recitation. And we simply say jed medew, words spoken. All right. So if the cobra means to speak, why would they associate a cobra with speaking when there's plenty of animals that make actual sounds? Because snakes don't even make sounds. Now, there's kind of like a little hissing sound that some snakes make, but there are many animals that make distinct sounds. Matter of fact, there's some birds, species of birds, that can mimic anything. They can actually mimic human speech, you know.
Yeah, why not use a parrot?
A parrot, you know, if parrots are native to, Africa or in that region. But there are many animals that are native in Africa that make sounds. So why a snake, you know? So that logic falls on its face, even without diving in too far into the nitty gritty of the language. So you asked the question. So I'm just giving you my my analysis of what you've given so far. So, but yeah.
Right. So yeah. So and hey, somebody could say that the hiss, they use the tongue and all that. So on this particular example, we see the snake here, the snake, but it's not associated with anything to do with sound. We can say they make sound, yes, but why here we can see that the cobra is being used, the cobra in repose, but here it just means white or bright or silver. So if we're going to if we just follow that logic, really, I mean, we kind of have to we kind of have to test it out. So we're just testing it out right now, and then it would actually, you would have to do, if your system works in every single situation, then you got something. So let's take it like, for example, to the rabbit. We have the rabbit. What does the rabbit have to do with existence, with existing? Why is the rabbit used in a word exist or to live? Or even actually, why is the rabbit, what does it have to do with people? Or here, when we have the word when new, residents or people, what is the association that we're going to get with the rabbit? Or down here, we have the tethering rope and the quilting. What do they have to do with the pronoun you?
See, those are excellent examples to show that the logic falls apart. And oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a big what you're explaining is a big stumbling block to a lot of people who don't take the time out to learn it. It's not something that's very sophisticated or very complicated, but it just takes time to study it and to wrap your mind around it. And this is something that people avoid doing or don't do, and it leaves them confused. And so people don't understand how the writing system works. And so they automatically assume that because the symbols that are used to write out these words are pictographic in nature, that they represent what they're seeing. And that's not the case. And if it were the case, then it would, like you said before, it wouldn't even be a writing system. And so the rabbit has nothing to do with people. It has nothing to do with existence. These are arbitrary associations when you look at these things, because you could pick any object in existence to say it exists, if that's the case, you know. And then like your other example above that, the word hedge, that shows that the cobra is not being used for the fact that it's a snake or a cobra. It's only being used for its sound value, the j sound in the word hedge. And it's a word that means to be bright, white, get light. And so, which has nothing to do with a cobra. You know, whiteness, brightness has nothing to do with a snake or a cobra. So the cobra is not used for the sake of a cobra. It's only used for a sound. And we call those phonographs or phonograms, which you already explained. So these are perfect examples of how the writing system works, that people really need to pay attention to and be mindful of before they make claims such as the brother Zion Lex made, trying to associate walking with talking and the staff and stuff like that. You know, it sounds good. It's just not true. And it falls on its face when you put it to the test. So these are very good examples.
Exactly. And yeah, and so like in the beginning when I started, I was asking why, then we'd have to ask ourselves, why are any of those pictographs being used the way that they're being used? And you'll find that you will know why these examples that I've shown here, and just all the other words that you'll be coming across in Sesh, Medew, Netcher, all the glyphs and the words, they're being used in this sense because of what we kind of went over in this other section, which is when some words, when they share the same sounds, and these are like homophones, but they have different meanings, then what will happen is we'd assign those phonetic values to the new words, to the other words that sound the same. And this is just how writing system works. And you have to keep in mind that, with the Sesh, Medew, Netcher, if you're dealing with the Sesh, Medew, Netcher, you have to understand how Sesh, Medew, Netcher, how those pictographs, which are pictures, function. Because if they're just pictographs, like I said before, then they're not, it's not a writing system. Then you're just dealing with pictures. But in order for a writing system to be a writing system, then they have to have sound value and they have to have meaning value. And in this sense, the Sesh, Medew, Netcher, again, I'll just emphasize the function in three different ways. Any glyph can function in these three different ways, obviously separately, as phonograms, as logograms, and as determinatives. And those we have to, those are the basic things that we must know when dealing with the Sesh. So over here, just to explain, the word chew. Hopefully my cursor can be seen. Let's see. So the word chew we're dealing with has two monoliterals, and this one has the sound ch, and this is the quill cheek, which is W. So it has nothing to do with associating with something that you feel like will help you. It's good if you can do that. You can use it until once you memorize it, you just have to remember why the factual reasons of why they are being used as they're being used. These are actually being used for their phonetic sounds, which is the ch and the W, which makes up chu. And you'll find this in all these other instances, as Sebaytdome has also explained. So then I think I will go to the next slide, which was the second. You might want to play the second claim that he had as well, and that is on 3220 timestamp.
All right, let me go over to that. And can you repeat that one more time?
3220. So it's just close to where we left off.
Okay, I'm just gonna play it from where it is. Here we go.
Penetrate the culture and penetrate the legacy so deeply that we're able to extrapolate truths that will bring profound teaching to the surface. Moving on to the next glyph, we see a hand. Why do we see a hand? Um, I was in a philosophy class back in 1997, my freshman year in college. And the teacher asked the class that all of us thought we had the answer to. The teacher said, "What's the universal language?" And we all said, "Duh, English." It was at that moment that I knew I was I hate to say this on your channel, but I knew I was a true asshole. That's number one. Number two, he stopped us and he said, well, number one, English is not the most wide or spoken language spoken in the world. That's number one. Number two, language is not the universal language. The universal language is actually hand gesture and hand movements.
Right.
No matter where you go on the planet Earth, if you see somebody straight their shoulders, shrug their shoulders, that means no or I don't care. If you see somebody take their index finger and put it over their lips, it means shut your damn mouth or be quiet. So language being universal is shown through the dexterity of our arms or i.e. our hands. So again, coming back to the people of Kemet and the profound science that they had, they understood that in speaking, we have to also incorporate the hands. And that's going to bring us to the last glyph in this word, which is actually used as a determinative. But underneath the hand, we're looking at a quail chick, which has the phonetic value of W or U.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So over here we have Zalnex, and he's kind of gone through and elaborated why we see the hand glyph in the word Medew. And to summarize his claim is pretty much saying that the Ramesh understood that in speaking we also have to incorporate the hands. Hence why the glyph of the hand, which you can find on Gardner code D46, is used in the word Medew to represent speech. So again, this is just what he's doing again is associating things that can help him remember, what glyphs go with what words, but that is not how the writing system works. So again, understanding just very, very basic, we could call it pre-basics. You have to when you're dealing with a writing system, like the hieroglyph, like Sesh Netcher, you have, or any other writing system, the very basic thing you have to understand is what is a writing system? How does a writing system work? Okay, so in this case, I would go over again the same steps that we went through, because we're trying to do this the right way. Always we follow the Tep Hesed, the correct method. So you're going to be asking yourself, again, you're not going to assume. So you ask, why is the glyph of the hand used in the word Medew? Then we will, now that we've understood how the writing system works, we'll have to understand, how does that particular glyph function within the writing system? And we know that it functions as a logogram, and it functions in this sense as the word direct, which is hand. And then it also functions as phonogram. And one of the examples I have is ready, which is to put. It also has different examples as well. And then we know that it is also a monoliteral. It's one of those, is the single consonant or single consonant. And this is what we call the pseudo alphabet, because we can use all the different monoliterals to, we can pretty much use it to write all the other words, but the Ramesh didn't use it as such. But that's why we kind of use it as an alphabet. We call it the pseudo alphabet. But in this instance, it works as the monoliteral for the sound D. And I know that somebody might ask, why D? How did they come up with that? With the hand to be D or any of the other monoliterals. And this is what is called the acrophonic principle. And in this case, we take the first letter of the word and then we use it to represent the initial phoneme. So we know if you know the monoliterals, we have like the viper, which we use for the letter F, or the consonant F. We have the mouth, which we use for the consonant R. We have the hand that we're dealing with right now, which we use for with the consonant D. And so these actually come from the particular words that they represent, or the logograms, which would be, in the case of the horned viper, that would be phi, which is what is known as the horned viper itself. So they're taking the first word, the first consonant out of it, and using it to represent that alphabet. And in the case of the mouth, which is R or Ra, we are using that first consonant, which is the R, to represent this mouth in the monoliteral. And with the D, we're using the D for the hand, and we're using it to represent that. So this is what is known as the acrophonic principle. And that's how we come up with the pseudo, what we call the monoliterals, or what we call the pseudo alphabet. And we do that also with the Greek also. We see acrophonic principles work in the Greek alphabet, and also within the Hebrew alphabet as well. So this is something that I know Zionists should be familiar with. So this is actually what is happening with that particular D. So the D it represents the consonant D, and that's the Egyptian word for hand, and it's pronounced with that initial D. And in this particular case here, if you're paying attention to the parts that we're dealing with, how the pictographs work within the writing system, you know that it represents that D. But in this instance itself, it is being used as a phonetic complement. And phonetic complements, what they do is they help spell out the word of mostly biliterals and triliterals. So in this case, we have the biliteral, which is med, the walking stick. And the med has the consonants M and D. And what this hand is doing is, what that glyph is doing is to help us spell out the D within the word med. So, and this is actually a really good, I think it's an innovative system that the Ramesh also kind of came up with, because we have to remember that that when we're dealing with Sesh Medew Netcher, we had from what was about 700 different glyphs that developed into pretty much over 2,000 glyphs in the later periods, and it will be almost impossible to remember or to memorize all these glyphs. So the phonetic complements that are being attached to the biliterals or the triliterals are pretty good at helping us help us figure out what glyph we're dealing with. And in these examples here, we see how the phonetic complements work. And here with the word pair, which we kind of have gone over, we see that there's a phonetic complement of using the mouth, which is for the consonant R that is attached to it. And that will help us remember that it is the word pair. And here, another word that everybody, I think most people kind of familiar with, is the ankh. And we have two phonetic complements. They're not supposed to be transliterated, but they kind of help us in case we're not sure of what glyph we're looking at. We can kind of see that this particular glyph has an N and it has a sound in it. So this is the ankh. So these two are phonetic complements, and the phonetic complements are monoliterals, and they will help us spell out this. And in this other instance, we have men. And we're using one phonetic complement, which is the water ripple. And so this water ripple helps us spell out the consonant N, which is in the word men. And this is pretty handy because we have examples sometimes where a glyph could actually have two different consonantal sounds in it. And we will know in particular, if we don't know which one it is that we're dealing with at that instance. I know like the chisel. The chisel has the two consonants. It's the biliteral, has two biliteral, and it has the two consonants MR, and it also has that uppercase A and B, which use like in ab or abju, and we have mer like in semer or friend. So if we see the chisel on its own, we wouldn't know which of those biliteral we're going to be using. By the phonetic complement, if we have a leg attached to it, we know that we're not dealing with mer, we'll be probably dealing with ab. And so this is, this is one of those genius inventions. So, and in this particular case also, It's not because the hand is used for speech. It's because the hand is actually used as a phonetic complement to the monoliteral. And I think those are the things that I wanted to go over real quick, because that was dealing with what a writing system is, and it's actually just showing us what happens when we actually when you delve into something and you don't go through the basics and understand the basics. So we have to first understand the very, very basic of things. Then everything else that we build upon it doesn't have so much errors. So we have to understand Sesh, Medew, Netcher, the writing system, how it works. Then after that, then everything else will be, you won't find yourself creating all kinds of things that will just, lead you in the wrong direction. And just to summarize real quick, and then, I can take any questions after that. But just to summarize quick, so the two claims that Zanles was making, the first claim was that the Ramesh used the walking staff to denote speech in Medew Netcher because they were relating speech to walking. As we've seen, that is not the case. The walking staff is used to denote Medew in Medew Netcher because of its phonetic values is mdw. MD, not the W, M and D. And then the second claim that he made was that the Ramesh understood that in speaking, we also have to incorporate the hands, hence why the glyph of the hands is used in the word Medew to represent speech. And we know that this is also not the case, because in the phrase Medew Netcher, the hand is used to spell out the consonant D. So the hand is being used as a phonetic complement. And just understanding this, it makes it more simpler. And if we go to the next glyph, we don't have to create something new and keep creating things that are going to handicap us, when trying to learn. We have to make it really, really simple, because we're dealing with a script that has so many glyphs, and then it's a little, it might seem daunting. So to simplify it, we just have to make sure that the basics is understood. So that's what I wanted to go over.
All right, it was excellent. And hopefully that was very clear. It was clear to me, but hopefully it's clear to everyone who will be watching it and watching it now. Again, I do appreciate those who are tuned in currently and watching us live, and those who will be watching the video as an archive recording. I do want to add though to the last thing that you said about the hand, because both of those claims, the examples you gave really covers both of those claims. And so even with the hand, the idea that the hand would be chosen to use represent speech, because you have to remember communication. See, what he's confusing is language is the word language itself is a very ambiguous term. Some people even use language to talk about a writing system. Some people use the word language to talk about speech. And some people use the word language to represent any form of communication. So communication is the point. And so we use speech to communicate. We use body gestures to communicate. And we also communicate visually in terms of writing. So there's different ways to communicate, which is what he's trying to talk about. And in terms of representing speech, the main organ that is used that's involved with speech is not your hands. It is your mouth. And the Remich, which are the ancient Egyptians, they actually used the glyph of a mouth to represent speech. In fact, the language of ancient Egyptian is called indigenously Ra-Ni Kemet. The word Ra-Ni Kemet is composed of 3 words. Ra, which means mouth. Ni is an adjective of, a Nisbi adjective of, and Kemet is the country Kemet. So literally it would be the mouth of Kemet, but it's not used literally. It's not meant to be taken literally. It's meant to be taken figuratively for that which comes out of the mouth, which in Africa, speech is associated with the mouth. And some traditions and cultures will associate speech with the tongue. I know in Semitic languages, like the word lisan in Arabic and Hebrew, or lashon, where they would associate speaking with the tongue. But in Africa and other communities, they would associate speaking with the whole organ, the mouth. And so that's why you see Ra Ni Kemet for the word, for the actual language. And if that logic was correct, then they wouldn't use Ra Ni Kemet, they would use Jeret Ni Kemet, which is the hand of Kemet. And that makes no sense whatsoever. So that's a very, very good presentation and explanations that you gave, and examples, especially the examples to address those claims. And the brother in the video is insinuating that he's bringing forth new profound information that is like digging deep and things like that, and even asked the question or put the comparison that, you know, out of 100 things that he's listened to whatsoever, and so on and so forth, that no other scholar has brought that forward. And so now we see why no other scholar would bring that forward, because it's just not true and it makes no sense whatsoever, especially once you do understand the language and actually go in depth with learning the grammar, which is the morphology and syntax of the language, and you actually know the literature and things of that nature. All right, so that was excellent. Now,
I was just going to quickly say that, and I think you did speak on this, in the sense of being an autodidact. I mean, it's always good to be able, people learn by themselves, but also people learn among each other. So really there is no such thing as an autodidact like that, because you're going to be, whatever it is that you've learned, you kind of have to test it against something, and you probably have to do it with other people. And in this sense, you could have easily found out that you could have asked, why are people talking about this? But if you think that people are not talking about this, and you haven't asked other people why they're not talking about that, and you just assume, then what happens is what happened in this situation. And this is why it is good to always work in teams, or actually have guidance or teachers, because then you would actually, and we know in the social community, we have those people who are adept in Sesh, Medew, Netcher, they're known. So in this case, it will be the best suggestion would be to actually take what you think is a newfound thing, and ask somebody, it's like, why haven't y'all come up with this? And it would have been very easy. Somebody would have just told them, like, that's because that is wrong, So in this case, it's always beneficial to have guidance, even if you feel like you don't need it. You still have to check. You cannot be your own student and your own teacher and your own assessor, and doing your own exams and correcting your own exams and things like that. At the end of the day, you're going to have to go and test what you found out against other things, and you will need people who are proficient. Like our squad has our squad is like filled with people who are like the scholars in Sesh, Medew, Netcher. We have Sebaytdome, obviously. We have Sanjedi, we have Asar. So that's a whole team right there. We have the Seshu Mani Medew, Netcher. The name itself tells us we deal consistently with the language. That's our main focus, our only focus. So that we spend a lot of time on that. So people should actually feel free to come and use us. Check things. I know that there are a few people who actually do that, but more people who want to put themselves in front, do something and then go and tell people that these are facts, and put it out there in public for the masses to learn from, and that you haven't checked if they're facts. Use people like us. That's what we are here for. We really don't want to go back and forth. We never do that. We're not there to do that kind of thing. We just focus and people can use us. So, and this is one of the reasons why we even have this, because that information is already put out there. So some people are actually going to be taking that information and using it as facts, not knowing. So our job is to actually go through those and actually correct those, so that hopefully some people can, those who might have thought that those were facts might actually get to what is correct. Because what we want is the correct method, and people to be, everything to be correct. Just wanted to add that real quick, so you can go ahead.
All right, see, you're getting like me. That phrase "real quick" doesn't exist with me, at least. I had to kind of cut that out of my vocabulary real quick. But hey, that was excellent, and I think that was hopefully that was clear. I mean, to me, it should be clear to everyone, and people can review the video And obviously, you can make comments under the video if you have any questions. Join our Facebook group, ask questions there, or inbox us directly. Okay. And speaking of comments, I do want to make a point that I did see a comment under Friday's video where the brother Zionlex himself said that he appreciates the critique, and I'm glad that the brother takes it as a constructive criticism or critique. So that's very, very good, and I wish that more people would follow in that sentiment. And he also said that he would love to come on the show to explain or expound on what it was that he was going over in the video. And we're more than welcome to have him on the show. But once we go over the existing video. So we're going to go over the video and some of the other points first. And then, we would love to have a good dialogue with the brother and go over the video and what we've been saying about what he said in the video. We don't want to prematurely have a discussion until we finish with what he did say, what he already said, because what I find in the community is that it's less of a benefit. It becomes convoluted when somebody makes a claim, makes statements, and then they change it midstream. Not saying that the brother is going to do that, but this is something that is of no benefit when people do that. And, it's nicknamed called moving the goalposts and things like that. So, whatever claims we address, we want to address them first, and then we'll love to have a dialogue with the brother. Because I saw another comment where someone says that, basically asking us, we're not even going to have the brother on the panel, whatever the case is. And that's not the case at all. We welcome, matter of fact, we as Emicat just said, that it would have been better if the brother had consulted with us first prior to even doing his video, because then we could show him and correct him prior to him making a public video that he did, and he would have a little bit more insight on what it is that he's trying to express to the people. All right, so we don't run or shun away people from discussions. We invite them. We have a Facebook group, Sesh mdw-ntr, open to everybody. We have a website. We have our shows. People could chime in. Matter of fact, on many of our shows, we open up the back chat, the back panel, so that anybody could come in. So we have no problem with that. So I want to make that real clear to those who may be thinking that way with that comment. Okay. So real quickly though, I want to go over. I said real quickly. See, I want to go over something that I heard in the video around the same section that you just addressed, Emicat. So one of the things that Brother Zionlex, he spoke on was the relatedness of languages. And so I'm just going to play the clip, and I think it's a brief clip, and then I'll just address it, and it will be brief. So let me get over and play this.
Bantu, etc., etc. And when I sat down and I listened to them, being a person that understands.
Okay, one second. Let me back it up a little bit. I believe I kind of need to back it up some so we get the context of what he's saying.
Compare it to the languages in the Congo, such as Chikan, Bantu, etc., etc. And when I sat down and I listened to them, being a person that understands linguistics and etymology and syntax and how it works, progressed in learning the language, the more audible I became. Because one thing about people who speak multiple languages, especially languages that have relatability or related, it's easier to learn a foreign language when you already speak a foreign language or a number of foreign languages, especially when said foreign language shares almost the exact same grammar and syntax. And I'll give you a brief introduction of what I mean by that. I've heard a brother that I respect dearly by the name of Mfudiji speak on the origin of the Kemetic script and the Kemetic tongue, or i.e. the Kemetic language. And of course, he tells you that it comes from the south. I've also heard Sunjeti as well as Asar Imhotep, both from the Amun-Ra squad, speak of the same thing, that the Medu comes from the south. And today they compare it to the languages in the Congo, such as Chikan, Bantu, etc., etc. And when I sat down and I listened to them, being a person that understands linguistics and etymology and syntax and how it works, there were some questions or some red flags that I had for a lot of their reasoning for why they believe that the language of Kemet is related or coming from these languages, or whether or not these languages come from it. And the red flags appeared simply because I didn't find too many instances of them looking at grammatic and syntactical relationship between the two languages. Many of the demonstrations that Sunjeti and Asar Imhotep does in order to show the connection between the languages in the Congo, namely Bantu and Kemet, is that they look at vocabulary words and they go through the etymology of these vocabulary words.
Okay, I want to pause there. Now, mind you, anyone can see their full video on their channel. I believe it's in the Black Radio channel, Brother Solomon channel. All right, so when I play these clips, I'm only playing the clip that focus on what I'm going to address, and for the sake of time. But if you want to see a larger context, if you believe there is a larger context, you can watch the video in full. Okay, but I want to stop there because the brother Zion Lex makes a claim about what the brother Asar Imhotep and the brother Sunjeti, what they do. And I'm a colleague of those brothers as a member of the Amun-Ra squad as well. And I work with those brothers outside of that Amun-Ra squad because we share the same interests and study focus, which is language and African culture in general, and more specifically the Nile Valley. And so what the brother Lions X claimed that those two brothers do is completely incorrect. And it's unfortunate and it's unfair for the brother Zion Lex to misrepresent what Sunjeti and Asar Imhotep does. And it's basically based on his own ignorance of what they actually do. And it's easily correctable because all one has to do is visit brother Sunjeti on Facebook, look at his timeline, visit the brother Asar Imhotep on Facebook. His name is Harold Johnson on Facebook now. And look at his timeline, or get the publications. Asar is a published author. He has several books out, his latest being Nisud Biti, which is his latest publication, and you'll see exactly what these brothers do. And I myself, all three of us, we actually adhere to the same model of comparative historical comparative linguistics. So what I want to show real quick, let me just switch over to my screen here. As I talk, I just want to share a couple of things. So he's talking about the relatedness of language. So what Zion Lex is claiming is that the brother Sunjeti, Asar Imhotep, they just look at vocabulary, and and not the grammar of the language, and et cetera, et cetera. And that is 100% incorrect. Actually, the opposite is done. Now, the brother Zion Lex said prior to making that statement, if you heard, he made a statement that, he pays attention to language and linguistics and his knowledge of linguistics and so on and so forth. But I would beg to differ that the brother does not have the knowledge of comparative linguistics, which is the branch of linguistics that deals with the relatedness of languages. So myself, the brother Sunjeti, and the brother Asar Imhotep, we are aware and competent about the science of the comparative linguistic method in establishing the genetic relationships between languages. Now, notice I said genetic relationships between languages. In the field of linguistics, the nomenclature that is used is heavily borrowed from the field of biology. So you'll see the terms genetic relationships, convergence, morphology. Even the word morphology comes from the field of biology. So so that we won't confuse anyone, what I like to do when I say the genetic relationships between languages, so people won't assume that I'm talking about DNA and genes of people, I like to say, lingua or lingo genetic relationships, just to make that clear. So to determine the lingo genetic relationships of languages, you utilize the comparative method. And there's a whole method that is done. It's a scientific method that compares languages based on entire paradigms, not their vocabulary. This is something that Asar-Imhotep knows and does, because he's actually the one that actually does it. That's actually his cup of tea and focus, more so out of me and the brother Sanjeti. Okay, and if anyone picks up his books, you will be able to see that. He makes it very clear, and I'm going to show a few examples in a second. But in order to establish the relationship of languages, you have to compare complete paradigms of those suspected languages, related languages. By complete paradigms, I mean you have to compare lexical inventory, which would be vocabulary. You have to compare morphology, and most important, you have to compare the established sound meaning correspondences, and they have to be consistent and regular. And you have to study these things very systematically, because the object of historical comparative method is to rule out chance lookalikes, borrowing, and convergence. You wanna have true languages that are truly related by a common ancestor. And so you have to meticulously go through these comparisons of full paradigms in order to rule out the erroneous information that would cloud your results of your analysis. So you have to go through this systematically. You have to establish sound and meaning correspondences, which become these sound laws, because languages change over time. These sounds are regularly changed over time, and you can trace those out, and you establish these laws, and you have to do so very, very meticulously. All right. And this is something that Asar-Imhotep and Brother Sanjeti and myself, we do. With Asar-Imhotep doing it as a focus. He's the main one that actually does it and actually has work out there published demonstrating this. Okay. So I want to say again, the brother Zion Lex has completely misrepresented those two brothers. All right. And I think that's unfortunate, and he should really be mindful of doing that. Okay. Now I'm showing on the screen two particular books. A book called The Origin of African Languages by Jean-Claude Mboli. And then we have the book that I mentioned from Asar-Imhotep, Nisud Biti in Ancient Egyptian, A Lesson in Paronymy and Leadership. Okay. Now the model that we adhere to is the model that is demonstrated by Jean-Claude Mboli in his work. And just to briefly summarize, what Jean-Claude Mboli has done is that he has dispensed with all of the language classifications of Greenberg, and he started from scratch and allowed the evidence to speak for itself. So so this particular book is written in French, but this particular book is a textbook on the historical comparative method, because he actually walks you through the method in real time as he's doing it. So he's comparing full paradigms, the morphology, the suffix of words, the different graphemes, the different grammatical markers within words, not just lexical inventory or what's called vocabulary. So these are full paradigms that are being compared. And so at the end, the conclusion, he was able to compare 14 African languages and to show their genetic relationships between those languages. All right. Asar-Imhotep has done a beautiful job in his book on the right hand side in his first chapter of summarizing what Jean-Claude Mboli has done in his work. So Jean-Claude Mboli's work is a scientific treatment, and he's actually walking you through the whole entire process. That book is over 650 pages long. Asar-Imhotep summarizes that in the first chapter of his book. Okay. And so I'm pointing that out because we're well aware of the proper methods and procedures on how to determine relationships between languages, which is completely opposite of what the brother Zion Lex described. Okay. Now, just to kind of give you a little basic summary of the process. Here is from pages 289 and 290 of a book called, actually a paper called How to Prove Genetic Relatedness Among Languages from 2008 by Claudia Ciancaglini. I'm probably butchering that name. So I'll just read it. It says, essentially, the comparative reconstructive method operates as follows. A preliminary hypothesis of genetic relatedness of two or more languages is put forward, mostly on the basis of morphophonemic evidence. Notice it didn't say vocabulary. Morphophonemic evidence, namely non-causal correspondences in grammatical structure and morphemes, especially bound grammatical morphemes. Subsequently, the hypothesis has to be demonstrated through different kinds of evidence. First, the individuation of a large number of reliable cognate sets, particularly in basic vocabulary, showing systematic phonological correspondences. Second, the individuation of systematic grammatical correspondences. Now notice phonological correspondences and grammatical correspondences. So what Zion Lex is expressing is not how this is done, okay? And I would implore the brother to take time out before making public claims, as he has, to actually learn the process and actually study it first, all right? Because we can't, mislead the people. To continue, it says, it is worth noting that both kinds of evidence are equally necessary. In other words, a genetic hypothesis cannot be supported only by regular sound correspondences in basic vocabulary. Now, see, that's what Zion Lex said, that's what Asar and Sanjeti does. But that's not what they do, okay? We all understand that that's not what you're supposed to do. And this is basic, okay? Once these regular correspondences are established, the method proceeds to the reconstructions of the phonological and grammatical systems of the proto-language from which the related languages arose, and eventually to their subgrouping in different branches. Okay? And the last bit, reconstruction of proto-language phonology and morphology is not a mere optional step of the comparative method. If it is impossible for one reason or another to reconstruct the essential features of both phonology and morphology of the proto-language, the genetic relatedness of two or more compared languages cannot be proved. So again, just this slide and this information right here should straighten out and correct whatever it is that the brother Zion Lex was trying to convey. All right. And again, I suggest that the brother takes time out to actually study linguistics, study the historical comparative method, so that he won't make those mistakes. All right. Now, lastly, I just want to go over 3 examples of, now this is what Asar Motep actually posted on Facebook before, just to kind of show you what he actually shows. In this particular picture that Asar posted, you see that he's showing cognates between the ancient Egyptian language, which in Chiluba would be called Chikam, which is you see here, and then Chibantu, and then Ganda. So these 3, he's showing cognates between these 3 languages, and he's showing you the regular sound correspondences between these consonants. So you have consonant 1, 2, and 3 in the Chikam, consonant 1, 2, 3 is missing in Chibantu, and 1, 2, and 3 in Ganda. And he's showing you the correspondence. This what will be transliterated as capital A, or what we call a diacritic 3, is equated to an NG, an sound in these other languages. Okay, so it's not about vocabulary, and that's what I'm stressing. It's about full paradigm comparisons. This is not something that you're going to microwave, okay, to do, or microwave to try to debate against. So that needs to cease and desist. All right, and so that's one example. So he's saying that the flail or the nakha in Chikam is cognate with the Chibantu word kinga, and in Gandu is inkinga or nkinga, which is and shows the regular sound and meaning correspondences. Okay, and then he shows a picture of it, etc., etc. Here's another example. We have mer in Chicam, which is cognate with Chibantu lalo. And you also have, which is derived from dad. And in Ganda, we have malalo. All right. So this R corresponds to an L in these other languages. Okay. Lastly, another one. Now he has a lot of these. I just wanted to show 3 examples. And so we have these comparisons. So he has the A, or the backwards comma, and the S equals Bantu class 7 prefix ki, chi, or si. And then he shows the Ankh and Seneb, Ankhet, Seneb, Ankh, Seneb, etc., etc. And on here, he's basically showing, and he color coded so you can see these correspondences here. And now this is internal. This is within the ancient Egyptian language, Ochikam. So Ankh, meaning life, corresponds, this first consonant corresponds with the S in Seneb, air. And notice how this Ankhet means fire, and then Seneb means to burn as well. So he's showing here, he's showing that this internal correspondence going on. But the point that I'm making clear, and hopefully it's clear, is that it's not about vocabulary, as the brother Zion Lex would have you to believe. All right. So moving right along, another claim that he made is the fact that, matter of fact, let me go to that clip real quick, because I want to make this very clear. There is a part in the video where he makes the claim, and I want to play it just so I don't want to misquote the brother. But it's a part in there where he claims that the ancient Egyptian language is compared to Hebrew, and so he's implying that asking the question, why, if it's true that Egyptian language comes from the south and comes from other African languages, why don't the dictionaries reflect that? Why do dictionaries show comparisons to Hebrew and not the comparisons to other languages? And so with that particular claim, that claim simply just shows the lack of study on behalf of the brother. And I know he said he's been studying for 2.5 years, and it may not be his major focus, but for those of us who actually study it and focus on this particular subject matter and things, we understand we have access to many different dictionaries and things, and there are dictionaries that are being created that compare to African languages. And so I'm going to show you this one here on the left hand side is an entire dictionary written by Mubabenge Balolo, and it's comparing Middle Egyptian Coptic with Chiluba. This is a whole book, a whole dictionary. All right. And then you have Yoruba language that's being compared to ancient Egyptian. Now, this one is actually called a dictionary, this particular book on the left-hand side. But some of the work done by African scholars may not be officially titled as dictionaries, but they have extensive vocabulary lists within these books. And so here's such a book. You have words and meaning in the Yoruba language. I can't read the bottom, it's pretty faded, but it's comparing Yoruba terms and concepts with ancient Egyptian. Okay, so there are many books, and some of these are not written in English, so they're not readily known or popular among English speaking speakers here in America. So, but that doesn't say that it doesn't exist. And when you take time out to study this subject matter a little bit more thoroughly, you'll come across these other works, and there's many. Dr. Theophilo Benga, Shekanda Diop, and then you have this scholar, Kipkoich Arap Sambu. He's a Kalenjin native, of the Kalenjin people, who are direct descendants of the ancient Egyptians. All right, it's within their literature, it's within their oral traditions, and it's within their culture and lifestyle, even to this very day. He's written a few books. These are 2 of his books where he goes into and compares concepts and words of ancient Egyptian origin and compare them to his language of Kalenjin today, the language that's still spoken today. So again, these works do exist. It's just that people are not aware of them, and we are making people aware of them. The brother Asar Imhotep is really the main one that has put me on to some of these works some years ago. And so between Asar Imhotep, myself, the brother Sanjeti, and now even others, we're starting to introduce these works to other people, and then we're all jumping on board to move forward in this study. All right. So I just wanted to point that out, that the brother Zion Lex is lacking in his resource material to draw upon, and which is fine. It's just that when you make public claims and everything, you should be cautious, because you this is not something that you have focused on for a long period of time. Obviously, being a Hebrew, that's been your focus. And my understanding, as I said, I don't know the brother, but from what I've seen on the videos and things, I do understand that the brother debates people on the platforms and things. And sometimes we get caught up in trying to study just enough to argue in a debate, and it's not really a rigorous study into a particular subject. And so we have to be careful in those instances. All right. And so this is what I feel that the brother has done. Learn just enough to hold a conversation within a debate. But if you actually sit down and actually study it and put some time into it, there's a whole lot more that you can learn. All right. So I wanted to point that out, and I don't want to be too long-winded with that. So I just wanted to point those things out, that the brother misrepresented the brother Sanjeti and Asar Imhotep. All right. So that's all I had for tonight. And again, let's briefly, Emiket, if you can see the chat, if there are any questions currently, maybe we can address some of the statements or questions before we conclude.
I don't see any questions in particular, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat before we close out.
Oh, and I also see, okay, we have a couple of other panel members that joined us. As I said, when I share my screen, I'm not able to see what's going on. So, ATM Hotep, brothers, I don't know if you all have any comments that you want to make in regards to our topic tonight, but the floor is yours.
Nah, I don't. Shejmu, he had some comments in here earlier. One of his questions was, if you had a stick, you led the speech. Did we speak with our hands first or voice?
Well, you don't speak with your hands. Your hands can't talk. So again, we have to understand how language. See, communicating is what he means to say. Body language and gestures are definitely a form of communication. Even today, we still, even though we speak audibly, we still use our hands. Some people like me. I'm a perfect example. I as I talk, I use my hands a lot, and you have facial expressions, body gestures, and things like that. But that's what he means, communication. And what happens is, early in humanity, of course, we developed speech, and we did both. We had body gestures. Some people even start off grunting, or certain sounds that we would call grunting today. You have certain click sounds that are done. And you got to remember, coming from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, where you're chasing down animals, and you rely on your survival is based on following animals and hunting and killing animals, you tend to mimic the sounds of animals so you don't scare them away. And so a lot of people in early times would make sounds that would not scare away animals to communicate with one another. So therefore you have these clicking sounds and so on and so forth that sound like animal sounds. And we develop meaning around those. All right. So, yeah, I mean, there's a whole spectrum of different ways that we communicate it. Some people communicate it by smoke. You have smoke signals and things, at some point in history. pretty much more recent history, you know. So I mean, I don't know if I answered this question. I don't even know what the question was, but as far as the stick and everything, the elder, the thing about the stick and speaking is not so much that the stick is associated with speaking literally, or that walking is associated with speaking that way. It's just that the elders were the wise ones among the community, and because the elders needed the stick to support their bodies when they walk and move about and everything, it was a symbol, it became a symbol of respect and authority. This is why in Kemet you'll see determinatives of a man with a staff is used as a determinative for people who are in charge, overseers of different groups and foremen of different crews of workmen and things like that. So the stick became a symbol of authority. Okay, because in the community, the elders were the authority on the history of the people. And they're the ones that kept the oral traditions scientific as possible and pass it on from generation to generation. Because prior to the onset or the invention of writing systems, what certain communities did to store information was to use knots. And they used to tie knots in such a way that it told a story. And so only elders knew how to encode and decode these knots to retell the stories. And so they became the authority on information and to pass it on to the next generation. And because they physically used sticks and staffs and canes to walk and so on and so forth, it became together, it became association was made there. Okay, so that's where that comes from.
Yeah, they call griots in other African cultures historians. They say we weren't historians, though our ancestors, those elders, were the historians of the culture. This other question he got, I'll read it, but I don't understand it. Maybe y'all may understand it. It says,
well, you said you're dealing with Shesmu. Boy,
yeah.
See, sometimes I know sometimes Shesmu is playful though. So sometimes he'll play what they say devil's advocate or angel's advocate a lot of times. So
yeah, he was doing that. Yeah,
you gotta watch it. You gotta watch Shesmu.
Y'all may understand. I don't understand. It says the chick could represent that you were the submissive one. So I don't know, was he referring when Senate was going over the tethering rope and the quail chick? And I think that's when he made that comment, but I don't understand.
No, that's just not.
It wasn't serious.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that at all. The quail chick, it doesn't mean that, because if that's the case, then all words that the quail chick is probably one of the most prolific glyphs that's used in the language, and the water ripple, like the monoliterals in totality. But I mean, the quail chick is everywhere, and if that's the case, then all these words with the quail chick mean submissive or something. No, it's not that. So Sonnet Imicat did an excellent job at breaking down how the language system works. Oh, before let me say this: any information that people want, any further information about what Sonnet Imicat went over tonight, we did a fuller explanation and a wealth of information in the third book that you see on the right hand side. Has the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system been deciphered? A rebuttal to Walter Williams. We explain how the writing system works. We explain everything about phonographs, what they are, what the glyphs are. We explain how they function. We explain how it's mapped to sounds. We answered all the questions and we refuted all the claims that were associated with the decipherment of the hieroglyphs. That whole thing that went on, going on 2 years ago now. We addressed it in the book. So check out the book, and it'll benefit you, because we go into detail. It'll take us too long to really explain it. So that's why we put it in the book in the first place. So everything that Imicat explained is within that book, and it's also within the beginner's introduction book. But that's a textbook to the study course. All right. So either one of those books will do you justice. All right. So I want to make sure we don't forget to mention that. Was there anything else?
That's all I seen, and so far I don't see anybody else that asked the question.
Okay. Well, you know, I want to wrap it up, I guess, because we've been on for quite a while, and so again, the comments under the first video from Friday, I did see the brother Zion Lex. We all saw the brother Zion Lex posted a comment, and I'm glad that you know he has looked at what we've done in good spirit, as far as you know, it's just a critique, nothing personal whatsoever. The brother, you know, I don't know the brother at all, so you know, we're just going based off of what the brother is stating and claiming, just like anyone else. And we would be happy to welcome the brother on a show, but we're going to make sure that we're going to make sure we cover everything that he said in the video, not everything, but anything additionally that we haven't covered yet, that we decide to cover. We want to do that first, and then we'll have the brother on to have a discussion about it. All right, because you know the thing is that you know, people that, like, this is something that we deal with all the time, and so when somebody comes around or make claims when they haven't put in the necessary work for it, then it becomes more so a teaching situation, as opposed to, you know, because people are looking for a debate and things like that. So we want to avoid debating, because, you know, me personally, I take the stance of John Henry Clark. You know, I only feel good about if I'm going to debate someone, then let them be, you know, one of my peers, or what I would consider equal. But when you use that word, it kind of sounds arrogant or whatever. So I don't want to sound arrogant, but I really adhere to that particular stance that John Henry Clark has, where I will debate my equals, but everybody else, you know, I don't mind teaching, or we can have a discussion, you know, not a debate. And a lot of these debates out here are not really debates, because if you really want to see a debate, then, you know, go sit in on a trial at any courthouse. If you want to see how a debate really goes down. So yeah, so you know, I would definitely not mind having discussions. And someone else made a comment under the video, why don't we bring I believe the Black Lotus or something on, and that too, you know, I've dealt with at least one of the brothers. I don't know who all are members of the Black Lotus Society, whatever the case is, but one of the brothers I've dealt with years back, and everything. You know, we used to have hangouts on Google Hangouts and so on and so forth, and that brother as well, you know, he's not really qualified to you know, to have to be in a debate situation, but you know, we can have discussions, and I've had discussions with certain people before. So again, join our Facebook group if you want to continue this conversation or have any further questions after we conclude. So anybody have anything, any last words or anything?
Oh, I just want to say what I said the other day is I want to ask the chat to help us to continue to share our videos, our content that we have on our channel, because a lot of these things that were said tonight, well, some of the things that he said in the video, I mean, it's stuff that we talked about and covered, I know, at least 2 years ago, you know. So I'm just asking the family to help us share our videos, take our content and spread them all over the social media, and you know, and we're gonna do the same. I know I'm gonna start doing it, you know, at least 3 days a week. Also, I know Saber, you mentioned somebody that said Zion Lex coming. You know, we don't mind him coming on. I just asked if, you know, anybody out there in the anybody in the chat or anybody that following us, you know, that want us to bring these people on. We don't have a problem with it, but you got to display good character when you come over here, and that's the thing that you don't see me responding to a lot of things, because I don't like to waste my energy, because a lot of the, you know, people are, you know, they get I don't get too much in their feelings, and you know, they get all out of character and, you know, displays bad character. So I just ask if Zion Lex listening, or even Black Lotus, you know, like we said, we don't mind them coming on. If you come on, please come on in a respectful manner. please exhibit good character. I mean, if you can't restrain yourself, you know, our platform ain't for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, we try to be consistent with that, and I think we've done a good job with it. Anybody get out of hand, they just get axed. I mean, we don't, we don't tolerate it, and we don't disrespect. We don't call people out of their name. We don't, we don't do that around here. And sometimes, people do it in fun and jest, which is cool. It's always good to have some fun and everything. But when we take care of business, it's business. That's what it is. I do want to address. I see we brother have the brother Hassan. I'll just say Hassan. I don't want to butcher his last name. On the chat, I think he's one of the people that made a comment on Friday's video. So hopefully, tonight's video will offer him some more clarity and everything, because that brother, he made a comment and it seemed like he was trying to instigate a little bit, because he said, why did it take a whole panel of you all to address one person who's considered pseudo, or whatever the case is? And so I just want to make it clear to the brother Hassan that, I'm not sure who you are used to talking to and dealing with, but we don't want to sit around and call people names, and we don't take very kindly to instigation or whatever the case is. In other words, it just doesn't work. It doesn't take a whole panel to address any particular person. It's just that our style of our shows is panel based. Not everybody will be speaking during our shows, but we're a whole group, and so as a group we have these shows. But any one particular person could handle any particular topics or whatever the case is. So we don't want to try to go that route of instigation and say, oh, it takes a whole panel of y'all to deal with the brother Zion Lex. No, it's not that at all, whatsoever. Okay, so we just want to spread it out and give everybody a chance to address things. So I just want to make that clear, because we want to keep it friendly around here, because at the end of the day, we're all we have, and we have ideological differences when people are fanatical about their belief systems and things that hinder our progress as a whole. And so we don't want to add to that. We want to, eliminate that. All right. So we want to, instead of setting differences aside, we need to bring the differences to the table and discuss them. But we have to have good character. As Brother Kofi said, we have to have good character to have these discussions, because some people get caught up in their feelings real quick. Things go from 0 to 10 real fast. And, so we don't want to add to that. All right. And another comment, do you guys offer a program to teach children, or is the materials geared towards adults? That's a good question. Appreciate it. Right now, the material is geared towards, when you say children, I'm imagining you mean like, at a young age. And right now we don't have anything published for young children. But the textbook and the course really, like, for example, my daughters started learning when she was 9. So from 9 years old, as long as they have the interest and the discipline, they could learn it with the material that we have now. So hopefully that answers your question. So I would say from 9 and up. Okay. So that would be my answer to that. Oh, and they just said my daughter is 8 and I would like to train her. Me personally, I like studying world history. Okay, so what I would suggest for the person whose daughter is 8 years old is that you learn it. Like, you take the course and learn it. And when you become comfortable with what you know, then you pass it on to your 8-year-old, because your 8-year-old is going to need your guidance as well. Or you all can learn together. I mean, it's perfectly fine. All right. So yeah, but I would suggest that you learn it, or both of you all learn it. That way you all can study together. You can stay on top of your daughter. All right. So like I said, my daughter was, I believe, 9. When she's actually the video that you see on our channel, the one is counting the numbers and showing the expressions of plural and stuff like that. All right. So I guess that's all the comments that I saw. I just wanted to address some of the comments. Okay. Now, my answer, just to clarify, my answer was just speaking about the language. Now, as a whole, if you associate us, with the larger family of the Masi clan warriors, the Dagger Squad, the Amun-Ra Squad, and stuff like that, collectively, there are some children material out there. Dr. Ma'at, Dr. Oya Ma'at, that's what she specializes in. She and her sons and her family, they have started Ed Anime Productions, and they have cartoons or animated educational DVDs and coloring books and so on and so forth. So seek those out if you're talking about those kinds of things. All right, so I just want to make that clear. But all right, that was it. That's it for me. So anybody else have anything?
I would just quickly say that for any new, if we have any new guests that are watching our show, just to kind of get a feel of what we do, just make sure that you go through our archives and watch our videos, because I'm pretty sure some people are not really, aware of, how we do what we do, because people kind of get used to things out there, like all the drama and all that stuff. So if you go through our archive, you'll just see, and even for those who want to be guests on our show, for example, Zanlex would like to come to our show. He can go through our archive and see how what it is that we do and how we do, so that he can kind of get a little feel and know what to expect and all of that stuff. So we don't really deal with debating or anything like that. We, like our name suggests, Seshuma Ani Netcher. We are loyal or aspiring scribes of Netcher. So what we do is we deal with the language itself. And we pretty much just go over things and not really discuss on what's going out there, unless we see something that is wrong. And because we'd like people to really, it's a beautiful language that we'd like a lot. We like more people to get involved in it, and that's why we even have we have this YouTube channel and always demonstrating and so people can see how we grow, how we've been growing through the years with this language, inspire people to get involved. So we're not really trying to debate or anything like that, but we just want to make sure that we as a group and also with other people around us, we get to grow and we get to be better with this language. So for those who are new, just go through the archive, see what it is that we do. Then don't all those misunderstandings on why we don't have somebody on the panel. Why does it take a whole panel? Or are we trying to debate? All that would they will have a better picture of who we are and why we're doing what we're doing. And make sure that you subscribe also for the new members, and hopefully you stay, and become our usual members as well. So I just wanted to add that real quick.
All right. So if no one else has anything, again, I want to say dua to everyone who did tune in. We kind of, this like one of those ad hoc, out of the clear blue, in the middle of the ocean type of shows that we did tonight with no forewarning. So appreciate those who tuned in, and anybody who's watching this in the archive and lasted to the end and hearing what I'm saying now, appreciate that. And leave comments, thumb the video up, share it. And even if you don't like it, if you choose to thumb it down, leave a comment on why you thumbed it down. All right, because we have tough skin around here. We take criticism. If there's anything that you feel that we've erred in, bring it up, bring it to our attention, because our goal is quality and accuracy. Okay, when it comes to sharing information, that should be the primary goal of everybody who claims to be a scholar or in any position of influence, giving presentations and whatnot. The YouTube platform has opened the way for any and everybody to become a quote unquote teacher, and we just have to be very careful with that. All right, so our goal is accuracy and quality. So if you feel we made a mistake, again, let us know, and we can we don't mind adjusting. Not at all. As a matter of fact, even in the last video, I believe I even named the tomb of Khnum-Hotep in Beni Hassan. I named it tomb number 3, and I believe it was tomb 13. So, we don't mind corrections around here. But anyway, with that, that's all I had. Nobody else has anything. And I will say dua again and Shemem Hotep. See you all next time.